he, that is Mises, must be compared to thinkers like Voltaire, Montesquieu, Tocqueville, and John Stuart Mill. This is per Friedrich Hayek and his introduction to the Mises book, Memoirs. Another quote by Hayek, that they had one of the great thinkers of our time in their midst, Mises, the Viennese have never understood. And then the last quote, or one more quote by another famous individual. If anybody's studied economics, they've probably come across this guy. His name is Robert Heilbrunner. He's an American socialist, or he was. I think he's dead now, I'm not sure. He wrote a book called The Worldly Philosophers that sold millions, or hundreds of thousands, and most Americans in college that took economics in the 60s, 70s, or 80s read that book. He held the American socialist Norman Thomas Chair at the New School of Social Research for many years. As quoted by David Bose of the Cato Institute about his amazing admission in the New Yorker magazine shortly after the fall of the Berlin Wall, about 1989-1990. It turns out, of course, that Mises was right. This is about the impossibility of socialism. In particular, David Bose particularly liked the "of course." 50 years it took him to grasp the truth of what Mises wrote in 1920. 1920, Mises proved that socialism as a rational system was impossible. And he blankly tossed off his 50 years of preaching socialism to American students as being, of course I was wrong. 50 years. Now, Robert Heilbrunner, actually should be commended, because most socialists either don't know of Mises, have never heard of him, or would never admit it, never read it. Okay. Now, for just one quote, which may have nothing to do with tonight, the speakers tonight, I don't know for sure what they're going to say, but I just thought it was very apropos to give people who might not know too much about Mises a little background about how prescient he was. I'm not sure exactly when he wrote this, but I think it was in Human Action, so it was 1949 probably. But this quote is particularly relevant for today and the past 2 or 3 years. True, governments can reduce the rate of interest in the short run. They can issue additional paper money. They can open the way to credit expansion by the banks. They can thus create an artificial boom and the appearance of prosperity. But such a boom is bound to collapse soon or late and to bring about a depression. Now that's a depressing statement, considering what's happening. And I think our speakers are going to make us a little less depressed, because Mises had some very positive things to say. But welcome. Thank you very much for coming to this unusual event tonight. Thank you all, co-sponsors and informal leaders. On to our speakers. I found out about our introductory speaker a little over a year ago. He wrote a very clear article about Occupy Wall Street, those protesters. It seemed very unclear as to what they were all about at the time. He helped clarify it for me very much. I later saw him hanging out with some friends at Students for Liberty, Northern California conference up in Berkeley, almost a year ago, last November. It's happening again in November, this coming November. I saw him again as a speaker last summer at Freedom Fest in Las Vegas, hanging out with more of my intellectual friends. So when my good friend working on this event, Queen Nelson, said, maybe he should be an intro speaker and talk about Mises a little bit. I thought that might be good. I ran it by Rick, and he said it was okay. So I watched one of the videos that he had done at a class for the Independent Institute last year, and it was just fantastic. I was blown away, so it didn't take long for me to say yes. And I'm so happy that he agreed. Please welcome this widely published but wonderfully young research fellow at the Independent Institute, Anthony Gregory.